Now I'll call Michael Tansey and the organized presentation.
Right, well, thank you. My name is Michael Jasny. I'm director of NRDC's Marine Mammal Project, and I'm first in a line of speakers representing a number of leading national and state-based environmental organizations. All of our organizations fully support the staff's recommendation of objection and denial. We urge this course because of the significant, unavoidable impacts of this project on coastal resources and because of the serious questions raised about the necessity of the project as proposed. I'm going to use my time to speak very briefly about undersea noise. The ocean is an acoustic world. It's a world of sound, not of sight. An adult blue whale has trouble seeing its own flukes in the water, but a blue whale can communicate through song over distances of hundreds, even thousands of miles with other blue whales. It's sound that marine mammals and many species of fish use to communicate, to find mates, to find food, to navigate, to do just about everything that they need to do to survive in the wild. And to this delicate ecology, airgun surveys represent, in the words of Dr. Christopher Clark of Cornell University, a severe and profound insult. It's worth noting that in the 1950s, airguns replaced dynamite as the industry's technology for imaging deep beneath the seafloor. Like dynamite, airguns put out intense broadband noise across the frequency spectrum, which means they affect a wide variety of species, whales, porpoises, fish, and vertebrates. To give a sense of the power involved, and can you flip to the first slide? I guess the second slide. Thanks. And can you play that video? I'll show you a 10-second clip. This is a single industrial air gun going off in a test pool. And it's important to keep in mind that the seismic array proposed by PG&E would involve not one, but 18 air guns all firing together with a peak effective source level above 250 decibels. That is exceeding that of pile driving sources, incidentally, by about 2 orders of magnitude, 20 decibels, firing every 12 to 20 seconds, day and night. So what's the impact? Among other things, air guns have been shown to silence whales and other marine mammals, to disrupt their foraging, to drive them from their habitat over, in some cases, enormous distances of ocean. At closer range, they can cause hearing loss and injury. Mark was correct in saying that seismic exploration takes place in other parts of the world, but it is difficult to imagine a worse location environmentally for this particular project. As you know, the survey area coincides with the core habitat of a small resident population of harbor porpoises. Could you go to the next slide? And harbor porpoises are the most acoustically vulnerable of all marine mammal species. This just sums up some of the literature. We know from multiple studies that they're acutely susceptible to both hearing loss and habitat abandonment. The point at which they experience habitat abandonment, this is tested in both captive and wild porpoises in response to all types of acoustic sources, is actually below 120 decibels, and that can correspond to levels exceeding 50 kilometers in scope. So the use of box 4 will affect harbor porpoises throughout much of their core habitat. Given their high daily caloric needs, forcing these animals into suboptimal habitat where they can't forage effectively could significantly impact the population within a very short time. It should be said that if the animals don't leave because they are so dependent on their habitat that they can't afford to, then the number of injuries expected, that number of 7, will increase significantly, because that number 7 presupposes that 99% of our harbor porpoises will leave the area. The raw number of injuries is over 700. One final point. Understanding the distribution, abundance, and ecology of local species is an important prerequisite of any mitigation plan. Without this information, for example, it's difficult to establish triggers for delaying or suspending the activity, and that is precisely the situation that NIMS researchers who are putting together the monitoring plan are in right now. More than a year ago, we went to PG&E and State Lands Commission. We urged them to obtain baseline biological data. They did not do so. We asked the Commission to make clear then that in addition to the information on existing studies and alternatives that staff has identified, obtaining at least 1 year of baseline data would be essential for reconsideration of this project. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Schallenberger and members of the Commission. I'm Jen Eckerly, Ocean Policy Consultant for the Natural Resources Defense Council. If you could advance to the next slide. PG&E's proposed seismic survey is expected to have both physiological and behavioral effects on adult fish and invertebrates, as well as eggs and larvae. in addition to the impacts that Michael just talked about for marine mammals. Consequently, the project will undermine the conservation goals of the newly established marine protected areas near the Diablo Canyon Power Plant. California celebrated a major milestone this summer with the completion of a statewide network of marine protected areas that stretch from Mexico to the Oregon state line. The purpose of this network, created by a diverse group of California citizens over the past 8 years, is to protect, enhance, and restore the marine life off our coast. The Point Bashan State Marine Reserve, located just offshore of the Diablo plant, is an essential component of this portion of the MPA network. This area serves as a backbone MPA, scientifically designed to protect a diversity of underwater habitats and marine species and ensure that ensure that larvae produced in one place will be able to be protected and settle in another. This area is particularly productive and ecologically diverse as it is located between 2 upwelling zones and includes unique pinnacle habitat and shallow cold water corals. The high-quality habitats at the Point Bashan MPAs support diverse communities of nearshore and deep rocky reef fish species, as well as intertidal invertebrates, seabird colonies, and marine mammals. Next slide, please. PG&E has revised the project description for 2012 to address Box 4 only. However, intense noise generated by the seismic survey will still propagate to levels that will exceed 160 decibels in the Point Bashan MPAs, and 120 decibels in the Cambria and White Rock Cambria MPAs. Existing scientific research indicates that exposure to the levels of sound expected to reach these MPAs will likely result in significant impact, disturbance, injury, and mortality of fish and invertebrates at all life stages. Seismic surveys in Box 2, which directly overlap with the Point Bashan MPAs and may be proposed next year if Box 4 goes forward, would be even more harmful, exposing marine life to sound levels as high as 250 decibels. Because California's new system of MPAs have been explicitly designed to function as a network, any impacts to MPAs near the Diablo plant may also affect the success of those in a much broader area. Slide 3, please. The MPAs near the Diablo plant are designed to address substantially similar ecosystem and species protection goals as Coastal Act Section 30230. The purpose of establishing these protected areas mirrors the Commission's charge to protect healthy populations of all species and to provide special protection to areas of special biological or economic significance. This project represents the first time that the Commission has been asked to apply 30230 to marine protected areas. Given the significant time and resources invested in establishing MPAs along the Central Coast, with the goal of protecting ocean ecosystems and the communities that rely on them, we urge you to recognize the exceptional value of these areas, encourage you to make every effort to uphold these safeguards as you consider the permit application and consistency certification today. Thank you.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Steve Shimek. I am Executive Director and founder of the Otter Project. I'm kind of your sea otter guy, I guess. The first point I want to make is that sea otters are an endangered species. There are only 2,800 otters in California. Next slide, there you go. The EIR concluded that there would be potentially no damaging level A take. To justify this, the EIR said that otters hold their heads above water, and you know, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, but that's literally what it says. I could point you to the page if you'd like to know. In fact, sea otters, next slide, are marine mammals spending 50% of their time foraging for food underwater, 15% of their time grooming, and they roll and blow bubbles into their fur, another percentage of their time interacting. They spend a lot of time with their heads underwater. They're a marine mammal. We believe the draft EIR was correct and that 62 sea otters will be exposed to 180 dB or more. And that was, it was suddenly changed in the final EIR. My second concern is the Sea Otter Monitoring Project that PG&E included in their revised project description and you have not had the chance to see, review, or vote on. In fact, what PG&E has done, next slide, is fund existing research, next slide, that uses sea otters to determine health of the nearshore environment. And if sea otters are doing poorly, then it's kind of suggested that the nearshore ocean ecosystem must be doing poorly. This project is an adaptation of the Pacific Nearshore Project and involves trapping of sea otters. Next slide. Anesthetizing them and then surgically implanting a package, an electronics package about the size of a pack of cigarettes, that is a combination of a transmitter that pings out a signal and in a time depth recorder which records information. So then the sea otter is released, and people using that pinger signal follow that otter and record what it's feeding on and its behavior. But then the otter has to be trapped again much later and surgically remove the electronic package and then return to the water. So as mitigation for what PG&E says is a level B harassment, non-lethal, no problem, they're just getting moved around. As mitigation for that, what they're doing is that they are capturing sea otters, putting them through surgery, implanting an electronic package, tracking them, retrapping them, surgically removing the package, and then putting them back in the water. It just is ridiculous that what they're saying that they're going to do is mitigate a level B impact with a level A impact. That's crazy. As designed, it's just going to monitor what happens, not in real time. Monitoring should not be used to document damage. Monitoring should be used to prevent damage. Thank you.
Chad Nelson, I'm with the Surfrider Foundation. I'm going to talk about recreational impacts. As you can see from this map, it's a little dark, but the area from Cayucas through Morro Bay all the way down to Montana de Oro State Park is going to be exposed to levels, that red dotted line, of 160 decibels above. This is an area that's extraordinarily rich in biological and recreational resources, and during the time of testing, that 17-day period, recreation will have to be prohibited from that area. The environmental impact report states that any sound over 154 decibels could be harmful to recreational divers and swimmers, and it notes that it could cause dizziness, hearing damage, or possible organ damage. It sounds like the surfers are actually a lot like the sea otters. They spend a lot of time in this water and will be subject to some of these same impacts. We've heard from PG&E that they believe exposure must be over 15 minutes to occur. We disagree. This isn't theoretical for us, this is real. The study actually looked at repetitive short-term impacts, and that's what ocean recreationalists will experience. Next slide. Well, 160 decibels doesn't seem like a lot higher than 154 decibels. It is, because a 6 decibel increase is actually a 4-time increase. We're talking about something 4 times more powerful. The Navy recommends exposure no more than 145 decibels. 15 decibel difference is a 30-time increase in acoustic intensity and power. So we're talking about numbers that are significantly higher than what has been tested in the past. Further, we agree with staff that PG&E has proposed inadequate plans to alert ocean recreationalists when this goes on, which we're afraid will put people at risk. They haven't figured out how to warn ocean users in real time if the propagation maps, which are just models, not real, are actually higher than they suggest. And further, harm to ocean users must be avoided, and writing a $100,000 check, as they wrote in their last letter, at the last minute to the county for surfing access does not address the issues of potential harm. For these reasons, we believe this project is inconsistent with sections 302.20, 302.24, 302.34.5, and 302.10, and urge denial of the project. Thank you.
I'm Karen Garrison, co-director of NRDC's Ocean Program, and I was very involved with many other Californians in the recent creation of marine protected areas, including those near the Diablo Canyon plant. I know each of you wants to do everything possible to protect the public welfare while carrying out your charge to guard the coast. Fortunately, the Commission doesn't have to choose between these new protections and nuclear safety, because the case has not been made that this project is necessary for the safety of the Diablo plant, or that more benign alternatives are not sufficient. Here are a couple of reasons why. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Old network, new network. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So first, a report by, and I'm sorry this is such a small table, but hopefully I can explain it. A report by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's SHAC committee, which is made up of PG&E scientists and outside experts, has ranked the sources of uncertainty in the earthquake hazard assessment for the Diablo Canyon plant. Those are listed on the left side of the table. They're things like slip rates of various faults and sometimes dips, angles of faults. And they did that in order to, in the order of their degree of influence on the assessment. This table shows that proposed seismic testing, highlighted in yellow, could address just one of the top 8 priorities. Again, just one of the top 8 priorities. And there are plenty of other technologies that also shed light on that one. That's far from a ringing endorsement of the critical need for this project. Second, other types of geophysical studies that cause much less damage than high-energy seismic would address those high-priority questions. Those are the items on the right side that aren't highlighted. So let's go to the next slide. The good news is that PG&E, oh, where'd my other slide go? Okay, never mind. Good news is that PG&E just completed an array of those very studies. As you can't see from the graphic, the hazard assessment doesn't depend solely on the data from the proposed seismic survey that you're considering today, and it won't grind to a halt without it. The logical next step, given the harm the proposed project will cause, is to integrate the results from recent studies into the risk assessment, then take stock of whether uncertainties critical to the safety of the plant remain. If not, a great deal of harm to the marine environment will have been avoided. So now we're at the last slide. So why does this matter? Given the significant and unavoidable conflicts with several provisions of the Coastal Act, the only way the Coastal Commission could approve this harmful project is by granting an industrial override under Coastal Act Section 30260. But an override requires a demonstration that 3 criteria have all been met, including that there are no safe alternatives and to do otherwise would adversely affect the public welfare. This project doesn't qualify for that override because proponents haven't demonstrated that it's the least damaging option or that it's necessary for the safety of the plant.
My name is Stephanie Quinn. I'm the California Policy Manager for the Surfrider Foundation. I want to cover the question of legal authority and whether the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction is applicable here and whether this has been mandated by state and federal government. And the very short and definitive answer is that this has not been mandated by neither the state nor federal government. As the Deputy Director covered about AB 1632, what that does is it requires the California Energy Commission to basically analyze the vulnerability of nuclear power plants. That's it. That's completely it. The author of this legislation recently testified, which I don't think that you all know, but it's very important you know, that he said, no, actually, my legislation did not legislate this. He wrote it. There's been considerable confusion on whether the CEC or the California Public Utilities Commission or the Nuclear Regulatory Commission or all these acronyms, if they've mandated it. And again, the short answer is absolutely no. So let's start with the CEC. They support this testing, but they wrote a letter to you and say that they defer to your jurisdiction. Let's look at the California Public Utilities Commission. I'm really afraid that they've actually misinterpreted their role here. What they did is they allowed PG&E to collect $18 million from their rate holders to go forth with this testing. All of a sudden, the figure jumped to $64 million, and it looks like they've already actually overspent that budget. Now we're hearing that the CPUC says if this project doesn't go forward in 2012, that they're going to pass on additional rate increases to PG&E ratepayer. And it's really confusing to me. I don't know how the math adds up here, but I'm not sure we can charge taxpayers for something that actually has not happened. It's not clear what is driving the PUC, but what is clear is they do not have the jurisdiction to tell you to approve this. And finally, let's finish with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. In wake of Fukushima, they did release recommendations that said that nuclear power plants need to reassess the seismic hazards there. They wrote, as the staff report noted, they actually have explicitly said to you that they are not requiring seismic testing. In fact, they think that the information that's already been collected would be sufficient to meet their guidelines and the 2015 deadline. And it's extremely important to note that this 2015 deadline is actually soft and can be extended if needed. So in some The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is not mandating it. The CEC supports it, but they defer to your jurisdiction. And for some inexplicable reason, the PUC is pushing this project. But what is absolutely clear is that neither of these agencies can override your jurisdiction and require you to approve this project. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Andrew Christie. I'm the director of the Santa Lucia chapter of the Sierra Club in San Luis Obispo. I'm speaking today on behalf of Sierra Club California and our 57,000 members in the state. We strongly support the staff report. We also believe that there is at least one alternative technology that is feasible and would significantly reduce the project's impacts. Next slide. This letter from Dr. Lindy Weilgart of Dalhousie University is included in the briefing binder submitted by our organization all our organizations as an attachment to the Sierra Club's first comment letter. Dr. Weilgart dissects the EIR's dismissal of the alternative technology known as marine vibrosize, or MV, a discussion she found to be inaccurate and lacking detail. Dr. Weilgart is an expert in the field of underwater acoustics and was one of the first scientists to call attention to the adverse impacts of anthropogenic noise on marine life. She helped the Coastal Commission to assess the dangers associated with the ATOC project. In her expert opinion, MV is an alternative that would have significantly less impact than the proposed project. She cites a 2011 environmental assessment of MV to that effect and refutes the EIR's assertions that marine vibrosize might disturb seafloor habitat, degrade water quality or cultural resources, or be infeasible at the proposed depths. She also disputes the claim that MV would produce poorer quality results than air guns, pointing out that MV could actually produce superior results in many respects. Dr. Weilgart does agree that marine vibrosize is not commercially available at this moment, but points out that the reason why it is not is that, quote, industry has neglected to fund the building of prototypes. With enough money, things can happen, things can move very fast, and some models are very close to availability, end quote. MV is an example of a controlled source technology, as is a low-frequency acoustic projector or deep-towed acoustic geophysical systems. All of them, as a rule, are 100 times quieter than air guns, with a 10,000-fold reduction in the insonified area. The Sierra Club believes that a closer study of Diablo's seismic hazards is warranted, but coastal resources deserve maximum protection in the course of that investigation. MV is just one alternative that the applicant should be encouraged to fully explore before attempting to proceed with an offshore seismic survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Jordan of the California Coastal Protection Network. I think what I want to do is bring everything back to the historic role. Well, the first thing I want to do is thank staff, because I do think you have the most qualified staff in the state to review underwater acoustic projects. They've been doing so since the mid-1990s when we first started to understand what the significant adverse impacts were from these proposed projects. And I'm not just talking about, you know, it's not level B harassment here, folks. We're talking about level A, which is mortality and injury, and level B, which is harassment. And the Coastal Commission itself has had a distinguished role in increasing awareness about the impacts of high-intensity acoustic projects, starting with the ATOC project. And actually, that is the first project that I testified about at this Coastal Commission in 1994. Going way beyond my 3 minutes because I didn't know there was a 3-minute limit. And it's brought me all to where I am today. So PG&E talks about, you know, that they have a certified EIR. That certified EIR is so inadequate, it doesn't even contain a listing of all the strandings that have occurred on underwater high-intensity acoustic projects. It assumes the same, it takes the same assumptions that PG&E took, which is that animals will move away and you'll be able to visualize them. Well, as Commissioner Brennan said, I've been on one of those boats. It's impossible. You're trying to see an animal from a point up above. In a Beaufort C5, it's never going to happen. So, or you're listening for auditory pings on a computer screen. So for me, what I'm really concerned about here is that they haven't done their homework, they're rushing forward, and they haven't gone back and presented to you all the data that they've collected over the last 2 years doing low energy, onshore and offshore. And my real concern about the environment that these people who have come to you today, where they live, they are already reporting to us that there have been significant impacts. Because low energy doesn't mean no impact. It just means less impact than high energy. So
for me, and for those that have come here today, and Michael came from Vancouver, I'm asking you to deny this project outright. Send PG&E back to the table, make them come and justify that they need to do these studies. I don't think they've made that case to you today because I don't think they can make it. Thank you very much.